Hello and welcome. Today we are talking about how moving into retirement doesn't require you to have all the answers. Instead, I want you to think about having good questions. So, what are we talking about? We're talking about when you move into a new phase of life, you need to have a new filter. So, let's picture a prism in your mind. I like to think of the Pink Floyd cover. Am I dating myself here? But that black cover with the prism and the light shining in, and then it refracts out into the rainbow of colors. So picture that in your mind. That is a prism, right? And a question can act as a prism and it gets you a whole different way of seeing things. It breaks things out. It kind of takes reality and distorts it and breaks it into separate bands so that you can see things more clearly. So when you see the white light going into the prism, you don't see anything. But when you see it come out of the prism, you see all the colors. Well, that's what a powerful question can do. It can help you see all the colors of the rainbow. So most times you'll use a prism of the past, right? So you're going to use your past circumstances, your past questions, your past experiences as your prism, and it goes through and it says, this is what's going to happen. If I do X, I know that these things are going to happen, Y, Z, A, B, those are all going to be what happens because I'm using that filter of the past. So if I've talked to this person before, I know how to react based on what I'm saying in my head is going to happen. This is our past experiences. This is how this interaction is going to go. We use that prism all the time to navigate life, right? The past is very good, but as we're starting to move in retirement, the past isn't going to serve us. The other thing that the past does is it tends to do two different things. It helps you hindsight, right? Sometimes you look back and you say, I'm so glad this happened because as a result, I got to do these things. So maybe at the time it was very difficult or you just couldn't see where it was leading. And then when you look back in that prism of the past, you can start to see, well, because this happened, it set off a chain of events and this is what happened as a result. And that was a good thing or it wasn't a good thing. But the other thing using that prism of the past does is when you look at it, you start to see things in a distorted or exaggerated way. So something that might have not been such a bad thing just festered and festered and got worse and worse in your mind. So the event itself wasn't that bad, but you exaggerate it when you look back to the past. You're like, oh, that was such a horrible thing. And you use these big words to catastrophize it and dramatize it, right? So you add all this drama that didn't actually happen in the situation, but in the retelling of the situation, the revisiting of that memory, you make this thing so much worse. So that prism, the question of what happened in the past and what happened to me, and kind of telling those stories over and over again, it creates this distortion. And it's not going to serve you as you go into the second act. You don't want to bring that same prism with you looking at things in the past. You need something new. So what other kind of prisms are there instead of looking at your past? Well, think about a prism is just a filter. So let's say you have a prism and you use religion or some particular beliefs as your filter. So you see things through that, the ideologies of your faith or just a very strong belief system you have, and all of a sudden you start to see the world differently. And when you're using a prism that's more philosophical, you'll tend to see more about where's your place in the world. So a prism of the past kind of tells you how to act in a certain situation, but a prism of philosophy, religious beliefs kind of tells you this is where I fit in the world, and then that's how I react now based on how I see myself operating in this world. Does that make sense? So a prism is just a filter that helps you break things out into all these different colors and shows you how to act, how to behave, maybe even helps you clarify your beliefs. It gives you that clarity of, if I am a person of this faith, when I use that prism, this tells me how to believe and how to act in certain situations. So it's a very, very powerful thing, but it's not exactly what you're going to want moving into the next act. You have a new identity you're coming into, right? And these old prisms aren't necessarily going to work for you. The old beliefs and your old past stories are not going to serve you in retirement because you have a whole new identity. This is that midlife reawakening and reimagining of who you are. And so that's why I want you to be thinking about this prism as, I need to change it to move into the future. A lot of people who feel this angst as they move into retirement, this worry of, I don't have the answers. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who I'm going to be. We can let that go if you have this new tool, this new prism for how you're going to move through the future. And what we're going to talk about is how you create a primary question, or you use different questions to set up that prism. So that point where the light comes in and breaks apart, what is that point? It's the question that you're going to start asking yourself that will help you reshape your new identity. And so we're going to talk about 5 steps on how to develop a new question and use the new question to find which one is going to be right for you as you move through the future. And I'm going to give you examples, so don't worry if this isn't quite clear. And just as a backup real quick, I'm Julianne Price with Life Edit and Design. And my whole goal is to help you have a successful second act and to help you vibrate at a very high energy, because when we're all feeling better and we're feeling uplifted, we will ripple out that positive energy to everyone in the world. And that's my goal, to ripple up a higher energy vibe and help heal the planet that way. So as we look at this prism, so let's talk about these 5 steps to help you move into retirement. So retirement really requires a new identity, a new perspective on life, and that means a new prism, a new way of breaking apart what's happening and guiding your behavior as you go forward. So if you don't do this, if you kind of keep your old filter in place, right, your old questions, your old stories in place, and so you're using that old filter, you're going to feel lost. And that's where I think a lot of people that I've talked to, that they just don't get it because they haven't rewired or opened themselves up to this new perspective. Like, I need to be somebody new in retirement. By using your old questions of maybe like, how will I succeed? How will I get the best results from this situation? What does my boss want? What does my family want? Like, using some of these old questions in your head. How can I best protect myself? How can I, like, when you're in that career environment, there's a lot about survival, protection, defense. Like, I was always in defense mode. Like, my primary question, this is so sad, but my primary question when I used to walk into the building was, who's going to attack me today? And that was, you can see what a debilitating question that is, and you can kind of guess what kind of experience I had with that as my primary question. But what was the primary question you had when you walked into your office or had interactions with your superiors, your board of directors, whoever? Like, was there a question you always asked, like, oh, what's so-and-so going to say to me today? Or what kind of chaos am I going to walk into today? Or whose drama is going to throw off my world today? Think about some of those questions that you've been asking yourself. They're not going to serve you in retirement. So if you keep bringing those questions forward and you're like, uh-oh, I don't have a boss. Oh, I don't have colleagues. I don't have meetings. I don't have board of directors. I don't have situations. All these old questions aren't going to serve you. And that's why you feel lost, is you're bringing all this old data with you, and there's no answers to that data anymore. And the one colleague I keep thinking of who just felt so lost, it's like he was like, what project am I going to work on today? But he was thinking from his work perspective of, that he loved data and he loved research. And he's like, what am I going to work on today? And it struck me as like, that's the wrong question for this new phase of life. So let's talk about these 5 steps. How are you going to find these new 5 steps? Because that's where the happiness lies, is in coming up with your new identity that will give you new meaning and new passion. So first thing you want to do is identify what your current question is. What are you always asking yourself right now? And that, again, it could have a lot to do with people pleasing, could have a lot to do with perfectionism, like you're still driven by that success and hustle mentality, which no longer serves you when you move into this new paradigm or the new shift of where your life's going to be. As you're in your second act, those little questions don't work. But first we need to identify what is it that you're asking. And then we're going to start to move into, okay, what new question am I going to ask myself on a regular basis as situations arise or as I wake up in the day? What's the question that's going to drive my day? So that you have some new opportunities. And what I'll say to you here is the question that you have been asking, you developed over time. And so this new question that you're going to ask, the new prism that you're going to see your life through, you're going to have to try some things out to see what works. So I wrote a list of just a couple questions that you might want to start thinking about. But like, first question is, as you're waking up in the day, like, what would make me feel most alive today? And just try that on. Like, as you're waking up your day, instead of feeling like, who's going to attack me today? It's like, what would make me feel most alive today? Would it be going out for a walk? And would it be eating certain food? Or would it be meeting certain people, making phone calls to friends? Like, that's just a new question that takes your mind into a new direction, right? If your primary question is, what would make me feel most alive today? Your brain is going to come up with answers. And those answers are going to be positive answers. They're going to be exciting answers. They're going to be things you want to do, versus something that feels more of that hustle culture, right? We're letting the hustle culture go away, and it's going to take some time. So we're looking to identify that new question. So that's step 2. So a few more questions, like, what if this was easy? So if you're approaching retirement and you're really, really hung up on it, it's like, what if my second act was easy? What if going out and meeting new people was easy? What if finding new hobbies was easy? So what if this was easy? And you substitute the word this for whatever it is you're coming up against. Like, what if eating healthy was easy? What if finding new exercise was easy? It's a great question. And again, your mind's looking for ease and it's looking for positivity. It's not a negative question. How can I be more me in this moment? So as you're shaping that new identity, you're no longer identifying with the title that you held. How can I be more of me? Who is me? And how can I be more of that in this situation? And so ask yourself that question. So as you're going out, even if it's something simple, you're running an errand, it's like, how can I be more of me? Maybe you actually, since you're not in a hurry all the time, you can actually stop and have conversations with people you meet, with the cashier, with other people shopping. Maybe you can just be more relaxed instead of being the person who always rushed through. You're like, how can I be more of me? The new me is relaxed. The new me is very sociable. Whatever that new me is for you, how can I be more of that in this situation? Another good question is what's trying to show itself in this new me? Like what, if you see something like this is good for something that keeps happening over and over again, you keep hearing something, seeing something, you're like, what's the message that's trying to come through right now? What new idea is trying to bubble up and emerge? That's a question maybe for more special situations where you're just seeing some repetition and you're like, or even why did that just happen? What new wonderful thing, again, keep it in the positive, what new wonderful thing is trying to show up in my life right now? Another thing to ask yourself is, what would I do if I'm not afraid? Like if I'm not afraid of this, like I'm learning pickleball right now and I'm not very good, but I'm a beginner and I'm like, what if I wasn't afraid? What if I go into the pickleball? Like I'm trying to figure out how am I going to meet new people? How am I going to feel comfortable when I'm not good at the skill yet? Like how am I going to do that? So the question I ask myself is, what if I wasn't afraid of looking stupid? What if I wasn't afraid of missing the ball? What if I wasn't afraid of causing our team to lose a game? I'm really worried about this and I'm playing at a beginner's level with people who've just never played before, and the whole point is very relaxed, but yet I'm in my mind, I've got some of these old stories popping up, and so I'm asking myself, what would pickleball look like if it was easy? What would it look like if I wasn't afraid? So again, these questions, think about that prism. It's changing the answers that are possible. The answers are what shoots out the other end. So I'm asking a question and now I'm looking for possibilities. I'm not looking for protection. I'm not looking for, I'm not playing defense anymore. Now I'm looking to grow. And so I'm looking for questions that expand me. Another question that I always encourage my clients to ask is, who's running the show right now? So one of the things that I do with clients, and you're welcome to do this as well, it's a freebie that I do, is the assessment. So I do an archetype assessment and it's like, who's running the show right now? In your career, like I have a ruler as one of my archetypes. And so the ruler always wants to create and build and be running the show. And so the ruler was very happy in my career because it was all about being in charge and being responsible and taking control. And so as I move into my second act, it's more like, well, who's running the show? Is my ruler okay? Does my ruler need to take a back seat? Do I need to let my romantic run the show? My romantic loves ease and loves beauty and loves little personal touches and a little bit of luxury and the beauty in the world. So is the romantic trying to run the show right now? Or is the romantic and the ruler fighting? Like who's running the show? Is the romantic trying to get some airtime, but the ruler's shutting her down? My other archetype is the alchemist, who really likes magic, the flow, just having things have a purpose and a passion and the vision. Like that's the alchemist. So is the ruler shutting down the alchemist's vision by saying, oh, that's not logical, or oh, that doesn't make sense, or oh, you don't know how? Like with pickleball, it's like, is the ruler saying, you have to be good at this, you have to be perfect at this? And the romantic's saying, I just want to have fun. And the alchemist is just saying, hey, we're just out here trying to meet new people. So you can kind of like, who's running the show right now is a new question to ask. If you know your archetypes, to say, well, who's being heard and who wants to be heard and who's the best person to bring forward in this situation? So if the ruler is my pickleball nemesis, it's like, okay, let the romantic take control here. Let the ease, like, how can this be easy? How can this be fun? How can this be chill? How can this be relaxed? That's a whole different set of questions, right? And again, that prism is going to be different. The outcomes, the behaviors I'm going to take are going to be very different on that question. So again, step number 2 is come up with a new temporary question. And then step number 3 is to see what happens, to get out there and try it and use that question. So you might have to put a reminder on your phone and just be like, what is this question? And try it out. And does it work? So then step 4 is to journal. How did it work? How many times did you ask yourself that question? And what were the results? You might have 1 or 2 questions that you're trying out. You need to journal and reflect. What was the result of, I asked this question. First, I came up with this primary question, and then you're journaling, what are my results? And then step 5 is tweaking it. Like, okay, that question didn't work, or maybe I need to modify the word. Maybe ease wasn't the word. Maybe it's how do I be more in flow, or how do I be more joyful, or how do I, instead of like, how can I make this easier, it's how can I make this more fun, or how can I make this more spontaneous? Whatever it is that you need, that's what you're going to tweak in step 5, and then try that revised question. And again, it's going to take time. That's the whole point. But I want you to think about your second act as a reinvention. Well, that's not going to happen just like that. It's going to take time. It's going to take practice. This is experimentation, though. It's fun. It's testing out. If I ask this new primary question, how will my life change? Let's get curious. I did a whole video on just being curious. Like, let's just get curious. How do I use this new question? And what happens when I use that as the filter for how I experience life? How does my life change? So again, we're not in self-defense anymore. We're not in protection. We're not trying to strive and be a hustler anymore. Now we're like looking for the beauty in life. And again, your archetype is a really good way to help set this question, because you can look at your archetype and say, my romantic is going to go for that ease question, right? How do I make this easier? That's such a romantic question. My ruler might be saying like, how can I feel more alive? Because my ruler really wants control. So that might be a question for my ruler, where my alchemist might be saying, what's the perfect situation? Like, what's the ideal situation for me here? What is the best outcome for me here? Because again, the alchemist really wants the perfect vision to come to life. And so they're the dreamer. So it's like, how can this move me forward? What in this situation will help me move to the next level? So again, knowing your archetypes will help you with these questions. But if you want to take the assessment, again, I'll put the link below. And I also do a podcast on how I use my primary question, so that's more personal. So if you're looking for that Life Edit Design podcast, which again, I'll put the link below for you. But this is such an easy, simple thing to do. Like, you don't need a degree to come up with a new question, right? And I'm inviting you to go into retirement not worried so much about having the answers. Worry more about having the right question and that right new filter that will bring your life more joy and will help you reimagine and re-identify with who you're going to be. That question is a big, big way of shaping that new identity, and have fun with it. Okay? Put your comments below. What are some of the questions that you came up with? I'd love to hear it, and we will talk to you in the next video.